If an individual goes from one shelter when there's no space there, goes to another shelter, then is counted as perhaps a turn away from one or two shelters. We will have a homeless management information system, which is being driven by HUD and funded by HUD, coming online in another year, and we hope to be able to refine those numbers a great deal further.
I think you have to count things differently. Like the people that are doubling up, they should be counted as homeless so we can get a true count on what's going on.
Stagnant or falling incomes, or less secure jobs with fewer benefits, contribute to the increase in homelessness.
There are a number of clients in the homeless shelters now in New Hampshire that are called working poor. They have 40-hour-a-week jobs and a car, but they can't afford an apartment. They can't come up with a security deposit, first and last month's rent. And so even though they work 40 hours a week, they still, and single mothers is another category that's been impacted seriously by not being able to have a sufficient livable wage that keeps pace with the price of apartments and utilities so that you can have a home.
So it's just not an issue for folks to find a job. It's an issue to find a job that matches your ability to live with shelter.
What are you making now?
I'll be making $7.05.
It's not enough to support.
That's not enough to support apartment, and that's full time, and I'll be getting 48 hours a week, but that's still not enough.
The reason why I'm not really a proponent of a living wage is that you've come up with a number, and you're backing everything else in. I purport because I think once you get a living wage in, the consumer costs go up, and that also hurts the people who are poor as well.
More and more people are working at jobs which pay a whole lot less. The day when a union worker could go out, work in the steel mill, and make very significant, most of that is gone. And now we do service jobs that don't come near paying for what the housing shortage demands in housing.
There's a social price to pay as a result of this labor force that's out there in the service industry and in the retail industry that doesn't pay or command a high wage, that makes goods and services affordable to all of us that live in the area. But the money that is being paid to these folks isn't enough to sustain them. Mm-hmm. And so what is society's obligation?
I'll work hard on any livable wage campaign. It does two things. One, you may actually get to where you want to go on a livable wage campaign, but it also helps you bring up the bottom. You may not bring it up to where you need it to be, but you may be able to get a higher minimum wage. It may not be a livable wage, and that pushes everything up a little bit. They are, the opponents of raising the minimum wage say, oh, well, it pushes everything up. Well, yep, it does. That's part of the point, that our bottom is just too low.
Okay, my name is Don Duhamel. I'm president of Liberty House, which is going to be a homeless veteran transitional facility. And today we're going to dedicate the building. We're not opening yet, but we're dedicating it so the people in the city will be more aware of what's going on. This will be the first homeless veteran shelter in the state of New Hampshire. And it's about time we start taking care of our own. We're trying to provide a service to the city, and really no support from the city. More of a hard time than support. And if somebody wants to provide a service for the city should come out and support this 100%. I've been at this about 12 years trying to find a place. And I had tried to get the Naval Reserve Center, and the city wanted it more for parking for school teachers than the people sleeping out in the woods out and back here.
The idea that the country will take care of us because we did the right thing and served our country is a fallacy. It's never been that way. It's still not that way now. We need strong advocates in order to get the benefits that we've earned and deserve. The week that our forces invaded Iraq, Congress was slashing $88 million from veterans' medical care. It wasn't a part of the president's budget. It was done in the House and the Senate. Everybody wants to be a veterans advocate on a sunny day when the flags are flying. But when it comes to being a priority over other special interest groups that have more political power, we're pretty much at the bottom of the barrel.
Over the last year, what we've tried to do is to help folks to help themselves. We've instituted a tier program that we borrowed from a place in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that allows us to identify our client base and entices them to try to help themselves. Our fundamental philosophy is we turn nobody away at New Horizons. Tier 1 would be a situation where if somebody was having an active problem with alcohol, drugs, or mental health issues and isn't in a position where they want to work or are not able to help themselves at this place, they would be in Tier 1. And they get a place to sleep, they get a meal, and certainly the opportunity for a shower. They're eligible for all the services we offer from medical through community outreach.
Anyone that comes in there is on Tier 1. That means they got a mat on the floor, upstairs in the dorm or in the dining room, usually dining room, then they move upstairs. But they got to carry all the bags with them in the morning.
Then if somebody identifies an issue that they have, let's just say one of the million that come through the door, alcoholism or drug abuse, they can still be actively involved, but they're kind of saying, yeah, I got a little bit of a problem. Then we'll move them up to Tier 2. It's a better situation, they're in bed, they're allowed to leave some articles here. They're working on their issues. And then we have Tier 3, where those are the people where my philosophy is, okay, now you've been to New Horizons, get out. That's where we're actively looking to help them get into an apartment, get a roommate, those types of issues. What it does is it allows us to treat our client base with the respect that they deserve when they're working at it.
I think I was working at the time here and there, temporary, but if I got a job on a second shift or something like that, then I'd have to sleep in a dungeon at the shelter because I wouldn't get a mattress even in the dining room. I'd have to sleep downstairs on a concrete floor in a dungeon. But it was a way to survive. I had to work and I had to survive.
On the downside of it, some of our numbers have dropped because some people don't want to participate in that type of program.
In 1986, I had found out that my daughter was then about 3.5, and she was being molested by my stepfather. I was at the time, I had just moved to Ohio with a friend. Her mother had gone blind due to diabetes, and I was used to traveling around, so it wasn't a big deal. I wasn't in school or anything. There wasn't anything really holding me. So I had gone to Ohio, and the night that we got out there, she climbed in my lap and told me that Grandpa had taken her in the cellar and took down her panties. And I immediately called Child Protective Services in Ohio, took her to the hospital, had her checked out, all that kind of stuff. And what resulted was a long distance between Deerfield, New Hampshire, and Akron, Ohio. We worked with the court systems and stuff, and we ended up filing charges, and we also sued them civilly because I knew that it was going to take a lot of therapy for her to get through this, and so I sued my parents. What happened in the process is that I think I want people to know that when someone becomes homeless or they have a hard time, whatever it is, you can't pay your bill, your kids need diapers, that kind of stuff, you usually go to your family first. Some people can't go to their family. So at the point that you can't go to your family, what happens to you? Where do you go? I mean, the thing was, I did what any decent mom would do. You know, I stood up for my kids, you know, did the whole prosecution in court and stuff. And then when you fall on hard times, there's nobody to go to. I have a very big family. I haven't talked to them in 17 years.
They had their pit dug for their garbage. They had their outhouse. They had everything.
They did. It could have very easily been a tent city. There was 2 other tents. They're over there. They've come down now. Those are old. One was there. One was there.
I'm Angie. I'm 21. I've been down here. This is the second time, actually. I've only been down here for about 3 weeks now, but I don't know. I left my house when I was like 16. I had a lot of problems.
Of the people down there in Valley Street.
My dad's friend, it was a molestation thing. And I got a court order to leave their house, and my friend's parents adopted me, and I wouldn't choose to be out here if I didn't have to be. And it's hard sometimes because, you know, it'd be nice to take a shower every day. It sucks not to. It's kind of nice to be away from everybody because there's not that many people to interfere with you and your other party. But we're trying to get an apartment, but it's the fact that we live day to day. So everything that we have to get every day, he gets out of his check every week, and so by the time the end of the week comes, we have like $100, and we're never going to be able to get an apartment unless we can figure out a way to budget things and sacrifice things.
The problem I see here all the time is most of our people have some source of income. They may work part-time. The jobs don't pay enough often, or they're part-time so that it's really not enough to support your family. But most of the people here, they have income either from work or TANF or SSI or child support payments, but it's not enough to rent in this market.
The face of homelessness has changed dramatically. It used to be, well, they lost a job and so they lost their housing. Well, now they don't even have to lose a job to lose their housing. They just have to have a major cost with their car or a small illness, and they can lose their housing. There's about, on any given day, there's at least 600 to 800 kids in this state who go to school and don't have a home to go home to at the end of the day.
The number of children and youth experiencing homelessness is increasing. They face barriers to school enrollment, attendance, and success.
When Jared came to me and he told me the story about the kids bullying him at school because he was a dumpster diver, they knew that he came on the Little Yellow Bus, which is the program that takes homeless children to make sure they get to school. That's the McKinney-Vento program, the federal program, a good program, by the way. When he told me about that, I was at loss at first to what to say.
Jared, you want to tell us a little bit about what happened to you at school?
Well, it's been going on for a couple of weeks, but they've been beating on me and stuff because I didn't have my own house to stay in.
They've been beating on you? Did you tell your teacher?
I tell my teacher that I tell the principal and everything, but they wouldn't do anything about it.
They didn't do anything about it?
They didn't do much about it.
Did they call you names?
Yeah.
What did they do? What happened?
I went to the guidance counselor when the girl called me a name because he knows her very well, so I went to him and he told her not to do it, and she just keeps on doing it.
What did she call you?
Sewer rat.
A sewer rat? Because you live in a shelter?
Mm-hmm.
It's not very nice, is it? How does it make you feel?
Bad.
Do you have any other kids at school in your situation that you know about?
No.
Just you? And they pick on you?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would like to say to kids like that if they knew if they were listening, if you knew they were listening to this, that you would want to tell them? Is there something you want to tell them?
That I want him to stop.
That you want them to stop? It must be pretty hard for you to watch your son go through that.
It's very difficult.
Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, what they're doing to him at school?
I've been fighting with the school system since we've been here. And I've threatened to take my son out of the school because they do what they can. They suspend the children come back, and it repeats. And yesterday was another incident at school where his lip got cut open and he had a bloody mouth, and they ignored it yesterday when he reported it.
Probably the more appropriate word is tragic for what's happening to them. With a little bit of luck, this family may be able to get themselves into a transitional housing situation or permanent housing. And if they do everything right, with no illnesses and no job loss, they might be okay down the road.
Homelessness and poverty are inextricably linked. People are too often unable to pay for housing, food, childcare, clothing, health care, and education. Painful choices must be made when limited resources cannot provide for all of life's necessities.
The stress is mostly on the people who are coming into the shelter. That's the hardest thing. It's been more than full all the time. This past winter we had people sleeping all over the place. The fire department said, the heck with the fire laws. People, you have to do triage. It's worse for people to be outside in below zero weather than to be in an overcrowded place.
On the other side, the food pantry, the numbers that we're serving in the food pantry are going off the scale. We're averaging 400 to 600 bags of groceries more than we did a year ago. So we're pushing 1,400 to 1,800 bags of groceries a month to people who have a place to stay, who can't afford the food or have to make that decision between medicine and electricity and those types of things. I mean, that seems to be our booming area.
We might as well wrap this silverware as much as we can, okay? And I've got the whiskey food. He's gonna go get some. 65 is what we're gonna count on. 65?
You had 65 yesterday?
Yeah, we did.
Really?
We
Is that a lot?
That's the most we've had at once.
Really?
Yes. So that was.
What do you think that's a sign of? I mean, is that a sign that...
It's a sign of the times.
Is it?
Yeah.
Have you seen the need for your services going up over time?
Oh yeah. We had 400 more feeders in May than we had in January. And we served 500 more meals in May than we did in January.
And where were you living before you came to Concord?
Before I came to Concord, I was in Pittsfield for a couple of years. Before that, I was in Florida, all over Maine. My ex-fiance's jobs took us a lot of places. And when my first son passed away, my whole life just crumbled. That was what my circumstance was, that I wasn't, I guess more emotionally fit, or I was codependent on my boyfriend at the time because he was the breadwinner. I was a stay-at-home mom. And then after Zachary died, my whole life just...
How old is he?
He just turned a year old in November '94. He passed away Thanksgiving 2 weeks later. They don't know. Even with my second son, my last-born son last April when he died, it's some weak gene I passed to two of my kids. So I think more it's like SIDS or either the RSV. But I haven't gotten any chemicals. I've been getting TANF this past 3 years, trying to get a trade, do something with my life other than my dreams I did have.
It turns a child right around backwards. It can really do a number on a child's behavior, worried, Where are they going to be next? Where am I going to sleep next? What's going to happen to me? And I mean, I even have a 14-year-old.
Being grounded? Seriously, my stepmother used to tell me.
They can't come home right now.
Grounded while outside.
He can't come home?
Inside so much.
He can't come home right now because I don't have a place for him. So he's suffering. I can go up and see him and spend time with him.
Is he in temporary care too? Or-
He's in residential.
Yeah.
So I can't have him home right now because I don't have a place to live. So.
How long has he been away from you?
It's been maybe 2 years now or longer because of his behavior. But when I had my home, he was able to come home on visits and vacations. But